Nancy is having grisly nightmares. Something monstrous wants to kill her. Meanwhile, her high school friends, who are having the very same dream, are being slaughtered in their sleep by a hideous fiend of their shared nightmare. When the police ignore their explanation, she must confront the killer in his shadowy realm. Hey guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be looking at the NECA A Nightmare on Elm Street Ultimate Freddy Krueger. Stay tuned. Okay, so before we get onto the figure, I just want to show you guys the box. And I was going to try and put the figure back inside there, but I realised that the figure was a nightmare to get out the box, and it would be equally as much of a nightmare to get back in. You see what I did? Because nightmare. Okay, moving on. So on the front of the box here you have the original A Nightmare on Elm Street poster, which is awesome. And you've got the skeletal Freddy with his claws. You've got Nancy in the bed, covering the area that isn't allowed to be seen. And then something I want you guys to help me with. What on earth is this here? Because I've only just noticed that. You see it? This thing? Is it that scene where where Freddy turns into like a snake creature? I don't know. You experts will be able to help me out with that. So yeah, you have A Nightmare on Elm Street on the front. So no Ultimate Freddy Krueger or anything. It just looks exactly like the film poster. Then you go over to the side and you've got Ultimate Freddy, A Nightmare on Elm Street, NECA and Real Toys with this kind of flame effect. Exactly the same on the other side. On the top you have an image of Freddy. Warning: choking hazard, not for children under 3 years. Ages 17 and up. Then on the bottom, all the people that were involved. And on the back, you have this little dialogue that I read out, plus a nice display of all of the accessories that he comes included with, and the figure himself. Open up the window, you get this nice promotional picture of the figure, as well as all of the accessories displayed very neatly in this window box. The background isn't really much, it's just the furnace room. If you guys can see in there, I won't bother getting it out. It's not really that great anyway. So enough about the box. Let's get on to the figure. So here we have Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, taking a look at him, my initial thoughts were, wow, this is absolutely amazing. So if you guys don't know, this is an older NECA figure, so you know, it came out quite the ways back actually, and it uses the exact same sculpt except for the ultimate version. They've given him leg articulation. The original version didn't have leg articulation, it was just a kind of a statue where you could move the head and the arms. So it's nice that they've updated that, and I mean, it just looks incredible. So let's get the boring part out the way. Let's do the articulation. So his arms can bend more than 90 degrees actually. You can actually raise them up slightly. It can do a full 360 at the shoulder, a full 360 at the elbow. You can bend the arms roughly about 90 degrees, but not very much. I wouldn't recommend you force it too much. You can do a full 360 on his left hand, as well as move it back and forward slightly. On his gloved hand, however, you can do a full 360, but it's hindered quite a lot by the sleeve, and I really wouldn't recommend that you force it, so you can just kind of move it up and down. You can also move it forward and back ever so slightly. You do have a full 360 at the waist, but this isn't something I recommend you twist all the way around, and you can also hinge him forward and back and side to side ever so slightly. You can bring his legs right the way out. As you can see, it's those old-fashioned joints that I really don't like, but you know, it is an older figure, so you can also swivel the leg slightly if you want to. There is a 90-degree bend at the knee, and also there is a pivot from side to side at the foot, and you can slightly move it, but not too much. Also, just to point out, the legs are slightly pre-posed, so even though they have articulation, this leg is slightly more sort of bent than this one, so he kind of ends up being in this very Freddy kind of pre-pose, which I actually do really like. And you know, it's nice that they give you the leg articulation regardless, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I wouldn't have minded if it just had the pre-posed legs, to be honest, because this is how I'm going to display him in this kind of stance. So, you know, was there any need to give it articulation? I suppose, but that's just me. So, looking at the details, I mean, the paint is absolutely phenomenal. I have to say, it looks better in hand than it did when I was watching other people's reviews of it. And it does make me think, is this a reissue? Because, you know, NECA have been, when they keep putting out stock for these older figures, obviously, and it does make me wonder, somewhere along the line, have they improved the paint slightly? Because this looks way better than I saw it, you know, on the review spot and all of those other ones that have reviewed them quite a while ago. It looks absolutely fantastic. Now, I am just going to say, this is not my favourite head sculpt. For me, it just doesn't look like Freddy. It doesn't really have Robert Englund's likeness captured that well. I mean, it's good. It's good. I'm not saying it's bad. You know, it's got all the nice details. It's got this lovely gloss to the wounds and all the burnt areas. You know, and it's got these sort of darker patches where it does look very charred, almost like it's been burnt. You got the very saggy skin, and the eyes, perfect. There has been a bit of red go onto his lips, which isn't supposed to happen. I've looked at the images, and that's not supposed to be there, so it kind of looks like he's wearing lipstick. Another reason why I'm not going to go with this head sculpt. I get that a lot of people like this head sculpt because in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy was less comedic and actually more fierce. So yeah, I could understand. But, you know, for me, I would have to go with the other head sculpt, which we'll get onto in a moment. But first of all, the most obvious accessory that he comes with is his hat. And it's really great because it's soft and pliable, so you can just sit it onto the head, and yeah, that's it. That's Freddy Krueger. It's amazing, actually, how much of a difference the hat makes, you know. I mean, he looks good without it, but just putting the hat on, it really just completes the look. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I love his jumper. I love the darkness to it. I wasn't a big fan of the Part 3 figure because the jumper just looks far too light. It's almost orange and green. That is probably accurate to the film, but, you know, I much prefer the darker red. It is strange, however, because he doesn't have the stripes on his sleeves, which is accurate to the first film. And, you know, when I picture Freddy, I picture the stripes all over, so that is a little strange thing. Also, something I have noticed is his hand isn't burnt, and that is also accurate to the film. It was just his face and his neck. The rest of it was just Robert Englund wearing a jumper, so, you know, his hand actually isn't burnt, which is interesting. You know, it's only future Freddys that would have it burnt. But still, it's very, very awesome. I mean, you look at just how nicely the red's been added to the wounds. You've got the lovely wash all over it, just to give it some depth. I really, really like it. It's like, I would give this a 10 out of 10, just for the paint alone. It's absolutely fantastic. So, first of all, I think we'll do the other accessories he comes with. So we have the really cool phone with Freddy's tongue on the end of it. It's like, "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy." It's like, yeah, it's like that was disgusting. That was, but yeah, the cord is soft and pliable. However, I would highly recommend that you be careful with this, because I feel like the slightest force will just yank that out where it's been glued. So be very careful, you know, try not to pull it or anything, but the detail on there is brilliant. And then you've got that horrible kind of gloss over the tongue bit, just make it look really slimy and gross. That's awesome. I'm really happy that they included that. It could be a nod that eventually we are going to get a Ultimate Nancy, but we don't know yet. Another accessory that he has is the bit where he slices his fingers off and you get that kind of green, that green spray that comes out of it. So to swap out the hand, very easy. Be very, very gentle when you're doing this, guys. Very gentle, because it is just a peg in there. So, you know, don't bend it. Just very gently twist it off. And then just clip that on. It goes on really easy. So now you can kind of recreate that scene where he's like, when she says, "Who are you?" He just slices his stomach open, all the maggots and things come out, and then he slices his fingers off and all the green slime sprays out. So yeah, that's very cool. These fingers are a lot thinner. They do have almost a charred look to them, like they've been burnt. I'll notice you guys might prefer having this hand on him. But yeah, very easy to just pop off and pop your regular hand back on. So yeah, that's really nice that they would include that. And next up, we've got the head sculpt where he takes the skin of his face off. It's very, very cool. It's so nicely painted. Really love that. You can put the hat on this head sculpt, but I don't think it would make sense, because I don't think he has the hat on this head sculpt when he does this. But yeah, he kind of looks like Darkman a bit. Skullduggery. So yeah, you can see it continues that same kind of wound pattern there, but then you just got this very glossiness to the skull underneath that still has the muscles on it. It's very, very grim, and those eyes, damn, that is creepy. Just look at that there. Very, very cool. We'll never really display him with that, but it's nice that they'd include it anyway. Another thing that they do include is the face mask. Now this is awesome because it has, the inside of the mask has been sculpted to this face. So all you have to do is align it, and it goes on there very easily, like that. And it stays on there very, very well. It's not going to fall off. In fact, you really do have to kind of prise it off when you get it on there, as you can see. So yeah, that's very, very cool. Once again, would never display him like this, but it's cool that they add it. You know, you could even put the hat on and just like, oh, I wonder who that could be. Yeah, Jumper gives it away. So very, very cool. But last but ever so not least, we have the head sculpt that I think just makes this figure worth it. I'm not going to lie, if this was the only head sculpt we got, I would have been disappointed. But we get this. Now, that is Freddy Krueger, and that is Robert Englund. That is fantastic. You look at the likeness. That's how I picture Freddy. I always picture him smiling. You know, he's got that very sadistic kind of, you know, grin. Whereas with Michael and Jason, you get very blank expressions. With Freddy, it's the opposite. You know, he's full of character. That's just how I picture him. I know he's more sinister in this film, which is why you might prefer this head sculpt, but to me, this just doesn't look like Robert Englund. This does. And this was the only head sculpt that you got with the original version of this figure, so these two are extras. And, you know, it's just a shame because I'm still going to go with this original head sculpt. So, to remove the head, just pop it off. This peg is a lot bigger than the more newer figures. So, yeah, I'll just show you guys what this head sculpt looks like. Noticed is if you just twist it on, it looks okay. So, yeah, look at that. Oh, that's grim. That is grim. Oh, man. I mean, I suppose it does kind of have a sort of poster kind of thing, because he's always a skull. He's very skull-like on the poster, so I suppose it could always double for that. And you know, you put the hat on, and like, oh, that looks really, really grim. I don't like that. That's too creepy even for me. So yeah. So if I can get it off. These really do sit on quite snugly, these heads. So lastly, we'll put my favourite head sculpt on. There we are. Yeah, that's Freddy Krueger. Perfect. That's Freddy Krueger to me. You know, this is how I'll be displaying him without a doubt. And then to just finally complete the look, get his hat on. I do love a cool way of doing it is that if you lean the hat forward slightly, you do get this rather kind of sinister, like you can't see his eyes, but you can just see the grin. Very Joker-esque. Really like it. You could also put it back, but that looks a bit silly. So just also make sure when you're putting it on, guys, the pointed end of the hat, as you can see, is facing forward. You know, because I made the mistake of putting it on this way. So no. Sits on there very, very nicely. And there you have him, the man himself, the man of all our nightmares, Freddy Krueger. Raise his head. There we are. Oh yeah, I don't think I included the head in the articulation. Oh, silly me. So, yeah, the head can do a full 360, but I recommend that you don't, because you don't want to scratch the paint off. It can lean forward a small amount, back a small amount, and also pivot from side to side. So you can get various different Freddy poses that look very menacing. So, yeah. I love this guy. I absolutely love this guy. And even though, you know, I'm not fond of this head sculpt, just this head sculpt for me, that's a 10 out of 10. It looks just like him. Honestly, it's absolutely incredible. Like I said, I think this is definitely a reissue because the paint is just so good. Or maybe this really is just what it was like back then, and it just goes to show you, even back in the day, you know, NECA had the skills. They didn't quite have the quality, but they had the skills. So before we finish up, we'll just do a quick comparison. Here he is next to Michael Myers from Halloween 2, if you'll stand. There we are. And here he is next to the T-800 from Terminator 2. Here he is next to the black-suited Spider-Man. And here he is next to a character options Dalek. So I'd like to thank you for watching this review, guys. Overall, I'm going to give this guy a solid 9 out of 10. I would highly recommend that you pick him up. I was very lucky. A very good website called 365games.co.uk. Great site, guys. Go check them out. I'll just put a thing up on screen very quickly. Their prices tend to fluctuate, but they have fantastic customer service and their deliveries are always safe and secure. So yeah, really good. Highly recommend you check them out. I just absolutely love this figure, and I think if you're a fan of if you're a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, this is a must-have. You know, I will probably pick up the other two Freddys at some point in the future just to do a comparison, but for now, I am more than happy with this one. So thanks ever so much for watching, guys. Stay safe and happy wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next video. Sweet dreams.